Hey, what's up, mortals? Zigzag here, and welcome to part 1 of What If the Rooftop Fight Wasn't Interrupted. This story is by our writer AxleBoost. Its official title is Beyond the Mend. Axel has given us permission to use it on the channel, and links to the original fanfiction postings will be in the description. As always, I just want to greet you all by saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. Sunlight scorched the Hidden Leaf Village training grounds. Naruto Uzumaki pounded his fists against an aged wooden post, indifferent to the heat. The dented bark had long since stained red due to his merciless punches. Fresh blood seeped from scratches along his knuckles. He continued to hammer away at the post, grunting with every strike. Clouds rolled in, bringing with them an overcast sky. The boy continued his task on autopilot. No matter how long he kept at it, it wasn't enough. This pain was never going to be enough of a punishment for what he had done. He deserved this. Naruto studied the raw, pulsing wounds decorating his skin. Wincing, he sucked in a breath and reeled back to keep going, only to freeze at the sound of someone behind him.
Naruto,
said Kakashi-sensei in a low voice.
that's enough. I understand how you feel, but doing this won't help anything.
It'll help me feel better, the Genin spat, taking another swing. Pain flared through his fist, but he refused to let up. His teacher's words rang over and over in his head. Kakashi-sensei understood how he felt? How could he know what this pain felt like? Every fibre of the boy's body tingled, his anger built to a boiling point, screaming for an outlet. Naruto readied himself for another punch, but Kakashi's hand clamped around his wrist before he could react. The Jonin yanked him away from the post and trapped him in an iron grip. It quickly became apparent that struggling against someone twice his size was pointless. Naruto let out a defeated sigh, and his body went limp. Kakashi held the position for a moment, releasing his hold once he was confident the irritable Genin wouldn't resist anymore.
Let me tell you why I'm here.
The silver-haired ninja exhaled.
Now that you've settled down, I was sent by the Hokage. She wants a word with you. Sasuke too.
Taking in the information, Naruto balled his fists as he reflected on his greatest shame. The still fresh, horrific memory played over and over in his head. An action as simple as breathing took so much out of him now. There was no doubt in his mind about what the 5th Hokage, Lady Tsunade, wanted to discuss. Neither Kakashi nor Naruto was willing to say it, but they both knew. Okay, the boy said after a long pause. Let's go, Sensei.
Now that you're both here, we can begin.
The Hokage's powerful voice commanded the attention of everyone in the room. Naruto flinched under the gaze of Lady Tsunade. She steepled her fingers, observing the two boys standing at attention in front of her desk. Her shrewd almond eyes held none of the usual softness reserved for the Uzumaki, her clear favorite out of the next generation of Leaf Ninja. This was the first time since meeting her that Naruto recalled her giving him that look. He'd seen her intense stare before, but there was always some degree of warmth hidden away there. Now, in place of that warmth, he saw hardness, distance, disappointment, maybe anger. He knew what she was capable of with just one finger. Imagining that power focused in any way towards him made him shudder. Judging by his stilted posture, Sasuke was no more comfortable being here than his teammate. Kakashi-sensei peeled away from the back wall of the Hokage's office and moved closer to Naruto and Sasuke. He put his hands on their shoulders and bowed.
Please proceed when you're ready, ma'am.
Tsunade nodded, acknowledging him without a word. She gave both boys a once-over, her expression stern and hard to read. She stopped to observe Sasuke's contrite expression and held his gaze before moving on to Naruto. Unlike Sasuke, he turned away when she made eye contact. Having made her judgment, Tsunade snapped her fingers. A couple of guards dressed in standard Anbu garb, complete with the overalls and many pouches their uniforms were known for, slid into view. They reached for the boys' arms and held up their wrists, revealing tiny black markings. Both Anbu agents formed hand signs and held their hands near Naruto and Sasuke's tattoos. Seconds later, the active seals vanished, and and the two genin took deep breaths.
Your chakra networks are no longer restricted,
Tsunade announced. Her nose bridge pinched as she stared hard at both of them, the atmosphere growing icier by the second.
But make no mistake, you cannot resume your usual duties as Ninja of the Leaf. You're to remain on probation for the next week while you think about what you two have done. After that, I will consider letting you return to work. You kids should be grateful. After the shame you've brought to this village with your actions.
She sighed and put a hand to her forehead.
But you two are important to the Leaf. I can't just cast you aside. If I were reprimanding anyone else, we'd be having a very different conversation, starting with stripping you of your title as shinobi.
Naruto winced, but didn't interrupt. Looking at Sasuke askance, Naruto noticed his rival appeared unusually calm now. When this was over, they really needed to talk. Sure, it would be painful, and neither of them really wanted to, but if they closed themselves off now, they might never talk about what happened again. They might lose whatever remained of their bond.
Anyway,
Tsunade continued after taking a swig of sake from a bottle on the edge of her desk.
Here's the long and short of it. You're not permitted to set foot outside the village during your probation. Your Anbu detail will continue to watch you at all times. If you're spotted even thinking about starting any sort of a fight for any reason, I'll hear about it. You do not want me to hear about it. You'll land right the hell back in those jail cells you spent the last 3 days in.
She slammed her fist on the desk, rattling half of the building with her monstrous strength.
Got it?
Yes, ma'am! Both boys replied quickly, bowing with Kakashi's hands atop their heads. Tsunade heaved, at last letting emotion reach her face. Her eyes sparkled with tears, but she pulled her gaze back towards the mountain of paperwork on her desk.
Dismissed,
she said in a gruff tone. The Anbu escorts nudged both genin along before they could say another word. Kakashi strolled behind, keeping pace with his students, but not saying anything until they were outside of the Hokage's mansion.
So,
Kakashi said with a slower drawl than was typical even for him.
I've got a few things to take care of. I suggest you head home to get away from prying eyes.
Naruto nodded, biting his lip.
When will we see you again, Kakashi-sensei?
He ventured to ask, not entirely sure he was ready for the response.
The Hokage needs to read my official report about what happened. Then she needs to speak with the immediate families of the victims. Until then, I'm not officially allowed to spend any time with either of you. You know how it is.
He didn't know how it was, but Naruto nodded anyway. Sasuke hummed in acknowledgement. The Jonin kicked at a rock and stared at the pavement.
I'm sorry, Naruto. Sasuke.
Having said all that he could, their sensei poofed away, leaving the boys with only each other and their Anbu assignees as company. Naruto and Sasuke shared an awkward glance. Then he took the first steps on their eerily quiet walk back into the heart of the village. Before we get back to the video, I'd like to talk about our new channel, Celestia. Celestia is a channel dedicated to all things Dungeons and Dragons. We currently have a series breaking down the different spells in D&D, and soon we'll be starting some new series as well. So, if you're a fan of D&D, or have an interest in learning about it, check out Celestia. Additionally, if there's something you've always wanted to see made into a video, then head over there and leave us a comment. The streets were dead quiet, and only a smattering of citizens, most of whom hurried back inside or gossiped amongst themselves at the sight of the boys, could be seen going about their lives. In a lot of ways, at least for Naruto, not much had changed. He was still receiving the same nasty looks and neglect he'd come to know so well, growing up in this village he'd called home. Sasuke was still not talking to him much, he was still the local screw-up. Nothing much had changed, and yet everything had. Naruto stuffed a hand into his pocket, fumbling with the singed bit of fabric he still held onto. No longer anything close to recognizable. The small shred of his late teammate's headband was all he had left, and he'd sooner die than let himself part with the memento. Sasuke didn't say a word as they walked along, but that was nothing new. Being together like this, without Sakura, brought an uncomfortable flatness to their time together. Everything in Naruto was numb, and he was almost certain Sasuke felt it too. Words weren't needed. Besides, it wasn't like there were any words that could properly convey the depth of the guilt and shame they were mired in.
I've been thinking a lot,
Sasuke said, jarring Naruto out of his stream of consciousness.
Being in that cell for so long made me realize some things.
Oh? Naruto asked, hesitant at first.
Like what?
Let's talk at your place.
His less grumpy than usual comrade suggested, casting a furtive glance at a couple of nosy shopkeepers.
There's not exactly a lot of privacy here.
Right.
In a matter of minutes, they were plopping down on the side of Naruto's bed to talk. The blonde noted that Sasuke held his tongue about his room's messy appearance, focusing only on the conversation at hand. Even he must have known the gravity of what they went through. What they did.
Sasuke.
Shh,
Sasuke interrupted.
let me go first, alright? Before I change my mind.
Naruto took shallow breaths, waiting for his friend to speak.
Sakura. Sakura is gone.
Sasuke's blunt words carried with them a hard truth that Naruto had, until now, done his best to sidestep. The moment they were spoken, something inside him came undone.
She's dead. And whether we meant to do it or not, it was by our hands. I know how the villagers feel about you. And I know a lot of people will say a lot of things in the next few days. Maybe even weeks or months from now. But this is on me, okay? Not you. I started the fight at the hospital. I knew what to say to rile you up and get you to fight me. So that's what I did. This is where it led us. No matter what anyone tells you or what you tell yourself, it's on me, alright?
Naruto shook his head, doing his best to ignore the Anbu he knew were perched outside his window.
No, it's not alright! Sasuke, I'm guilty too. I let my competition with you make me forget about everything else. By the time I saw Sakura running across the rooftop, my Rasengan wouldn't...
Yeah, I know.
Sasuke kicked his leg out.
My Chidori wouldn't vanish either. I'd already made it too big. And I couldn't disperse the chakra fast enough.
He sighed.
But forget about that for now. There's something else. After she passed, something happened.
Sasuke leaned in, putting a finger to his lips. Naruto turned his head to one side to hear Sasuke's secret. The Anbu posted nearby may have been tracking their movements, but they couldn't report on what they couldn't hear. When the young Uchiha spoke, every muscle in Naruto's body went rigid.
There's something my brother told me long ago, about a more powerful version of the Sharingan. I didn't fully believe him, at least not until that day.
Sasuke pulled back, closed his eyes, and after a moment of intense focus, opened them again. The typical red and black pattern of his Sharingan had taken on a new, more complex form. The design now resembled a kaleidoscope, and was like no ocular jutsu Naruto had ever seen before. The Uzumaki let out an involuntary gasp, hopping up from the bed. Sasuke blinked, and in an instant, his eyes were coal black once more.
That,
He whispered between shaky breaths.
was the Mangekyo Sharingan.
Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a primary channel called We the Celestials. We the Celestials is what we do here already, but their content is centered around the crazy world and lore of My Hero Academia. So please, check us out over there if you're feeling in the mood for a roller coaster of quirky content. We also have another relative to our channel, Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's guaranteed to expand your weeb knowledge of all kinds of series. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. If you are perhaps interested in what we do here at WTC, then I would like to extend an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members 16 and older to join our crew. You can find us on our Discord, which you can locate in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits. All you gotta do is hit up the recruitment server and sign up for whichever category of work that fulfills your interests. We're always looking for new members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day.